Hey guys, today I'm going to talk about a unique old German handgun called the Schwarzlose 1908. As the name implies, these were produced in the early 1900s. In Germany, these are actually called the 1909 because the patent was received in 1908, but they didn't begin production until 1909. But in the United States, it seems like most people call them a 1908. That's what I'm going to call it. But either way, if you look for these on the internet, search for 1908, 1909, you'll get results on both. The gun was designed by Andreas Schwarzlose, who was a German gun designer. His main claim to fame was actually a machine gun called the 0712, which was standard issue in World War I for the Austro-Hungarian army, and then a few other countries used it in World War II. And he was so proud of it, and this company was so known for it, that that's actually their logo, is a picture of that machine gun. See that there? It says Schwarzlose, and then there's the machine gun that they created. But he did create a couple different handgun designs. Before this was the 1898, which was pretty unique also, in that it's an early semi-auto handgun design, and it used a rotating bolt, sort of like an AR-15. The mechanism looks a lot like an AR-15. Those are extremely rare, extremely expensive. I'd love to find one someday, but for now, I've got a 1908, and this is pretty unique also, and I'll show you why. It may look kind of normal right now, just kind of like a dowdy old German gun, but watch this. The slide goes forward. It's a blow forward mechanism. This back here stays stationary, and when the bullet leaves the gun, it drags the barrel with it forward and then chambers the next round that way. So that's pretty unique. There aren't very many guns designed out there like this. The only two besides this that I know of are a Mannlicher 1894 and a Japanese gun called the Hino Komuro, both of which I would love to find someday also. They're also exceedingly expensive and tough to locate, but someday. So it does have this unique blow forward mechanism. And I think the reason Schwarzlose designed it this way, there are a couple things. One is that, you're still in the beginning of the early auto days with this, really. You're kind of getting out of that era right now in the 1908, 1909 time frame, but there is still room for experimentation back at that time. Nowadays everything is pretty much a straight short recoil John Browning design, but back then people were still messing around with the basic principles of semi-auto actions. And the other reason is that you have to remember that back in the early 1900s, John Browning was actually still around and designing things, and he actually had patents on a lot of his designs. So unless you wanted to license the patent, a lot of the time you needed to kind of branch out on your own and come up with your own thing. So Schwarzlose decided to try this blow forward mechanism and see if he could make it popular and make it work. He didn't. They only made about 8,000 of these between the Schwarzlose company and also another company in America ended up taking up production of these. Supposedly only about 1,300 of these were actually made in Germany, which you can tell by the proof marks where it was made. After that, they were brought over to the United States, and the Warner Arms Corporation started making them. And they're mostly known for another gun called the Infallible, which was kind of a piece of junk gun, and apparently the German-made Schwarzloses were actually much better constructed, had a lot better machining on the inside, the parts were better. They're just basically better guns all around, and then the Warner Arms Corporation's ones were just kind of junky, and that may have contributed to why they weren't successful in any way. Never found any kind of military contracts or anything, and because of that, they're ridiculously hard to find today, especially in good condition. I'm amazed at the condition of this one. It's got almost probably 99% of the bluing left, and they're real tough to find in this kind of shape. Every one that I've ever seen for sale, which has not been many, has always had a lot of cosmetic issues. So the gun is a 32 ACP, hammer-fired, single-action pocket pistol, basically. They always came with this blued finish, which in this case, like I said, is actually quite nice. Overall, the gun is very well made. I'm impressed with the machining on it. Just the build quality in general, it feels very nice. And like I said, they always had a blued finish, and most of them had a plastic grip. I think a few of them had wood grips, but those are also pretty rare. Show you how it compares size-wise to the Beretta 92, like I always do. One of these days, maybe I'll get a Glock 19 just to spice things up a little bit and have a different comparison weapon. But you can see there, it's not that big. It's a decent-sized little pocket pistol. It's not tiny. It's not something like a vest pocket, but it is small. Put it on top there too, so you can get an idea of the size. And then the width, not that wide. Weighs about 19 ounces, which is a good feeling. It feels solid. A little bit top heavy. The ergonomics on this gun are not that great in my opinion. What you have here, I'll talk about the features for a second. This is a grip safety. And you have to, in order to fire the gun, it has to be depressed. So when that's squeezed, the trigger can go off, and it is cocked right now. since I just showed you how to cock it by pulling the barrel forward. I'm not totally clear what the purpose of this button is here. I've read a couple different things. First off, I have a manual that says that the point of it is that you can pull the safety in, raise this button, and then let it fall down, and it's supposed to keep the safety pin back, which to me makes the most sense because the safety is so strong and it wears your hand out that it'd be nice to have a lever or a button that keeps it pinned back for you. But I've talked to an owner of another Schwarzlose, and he says that it's actually to engage the safety permanently, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me because to me it seems like if this was drawn back into the grip of the gun, that means that the gun is ready to fire. But he says that when it's in that condition that the trigger won't pull and the gun won't fire. Like I said, the manual says one thing and this guy says another, so I'm not really sure. Maybe his gun is a little bit later manufacturer, or they changed something, but in any event, it doesn't work on mine, which is surprising considering the condition of the rest of the gun. It's, you know, it's almost in perfect mint condition except for this one lever, which I can't really seem to get to work for some reason. It's got a heel magazine release, and it holds 32 ACP, I think 7 rounds. Show you the sight picture. It's about typical of guns of the day, which means not very good. It's kind of interesting looking too, the sight. It's just it's long and thin across the top of the barrel, and it always kind of reminds me of maybe like a dorsal fin or something like that on a fish. And there's looking at it from the front. So as I mentioned earlier, the main thing that interests me about this gun is the blow forward mechanism. And that kind of mechanism is very rarely seen. Like I said at the top of the video, there are only a couple other guns that I know of that ever used it, and I can see why it wasn't very popular. It's extremely unnatural to cock the gun this way. You pull this barrel forward, and then you have to pull it far enough that it clears the round in the top of the magazine and cocks the gun. Then you let go, and it comes back and chambers around. But it just feels extremely unnatural. That spring is actually pretty tight in there. Maybe that's just because the condition of the gun is so good that it's just not been broken in, but it's hard to do. It's unnatural feeling. These slide serrations here, which you might notice are actually the reverse direction that you normally see them in. That's so you can grab it and pull it this way. They're hard to grab, and it's just really nerve-wracking to be doing this at the range, knowing that there are live rounds in here, and you're trying to cock this thing by pulling it forward, and at the same time not slip off and get your hand in front of the barrel. You know, it's just hard to be safe with it as you're cocking it. So that's what's unique about this gun, really, is the blow forward mechanism. And I'll show you again. This is pretty much how I end up doing it, is trying to put my whole hand over it so I get a good grip on it, pulling it forward, and then you let go. And this part back here stays completely stationary. As far as shooting it goes, it's not fun at all to shoot. One reason for that is the grip safety, like I mentioned earlier, is quite strong once the gun is cocked. When it's not cocked, it's like nothing's there at all, but when it is cocked, it really wears your hand out trying to squeeze this and pull the trigger, because the trigger is not that good. It doesn't feel at all like, you know, like an HK P7 or something where once you squeeze it in, you don't even notice that you're holding it anymore. You always know that you're holding on to this really tight grip safety here. And I always try to show you the trigger pull, so I'll do that. So you squeeze that. It's just mushy, it's heavy, and then combined with this this heavy grip safety here, it's really not very easy to keep the gun on target. Once you do, though, it's pretty accurate, surprisingly, considering that the barrel is moving with the bullet. I actually have a target here from the last time I shot it, which doesn't look amazing. It's I was resting the gun on a rest at this point, and it was from about 10 yards. So there's actually a really tight group here. Those are my first 3 shots, and then somehow I started pulling them up. But you know, that's not that bad, I don't think, considering how bad the trigger is. And you know, I was trying to rest it, but it wasn't easy. It's also not fun to shoot because it kicks really hard, and there's something about maybe the shape of the grip, or I don't know what it is, but it ends up actually bruising the inside of my hand because the recoil is so sharp, and it's all transferred through right here. It's just not fun to shoot at all, and I can see why these weren't very popular if they really shoot like that. I had to shoot some pretty hot European ammunition through it in order for it to cycle. I tried using some Remington, and it did not. It would shoot a couple rounds, and then it would just I'd pull the trigger and there'd be nothing in there. I had to shoot some pretty hot stuff, and that made it less fun too, because it was just really kicking. It didn't snap upwards or anything, it was just really sharp into the back of my hand. So the condition it's in and the with the rarity of these, it's not going to be a shooter anyway, but it was still kind of disappointing that it's just not pleasant to shoot at all. And that's the main reason I got it. You know, I've just always been interested in this whole blow forward mechanism, and I've always kind of thought, what's up with that? And so now I know that at least in this gun, recoil is not pleasant. It's very sharp, and it makes me wonder what the other two guns that are blow forward are like when you shoot them. And as far as the actual recoil profile goes, I wasn't really sure what to expect the first time I shot this gun. You know, with that weird blow forward, you know, I didn't know if it would be like actually tipping downwards rather than upwards because the barrel was going forward or what, but really, while shooting it, you can't really feel any difference apart from the fact that it's really getting driven straight back into your hand. It feels like you don't really feel the barrel tipping forward, you know, anything like that. It just feels basically like a regular, normal recoiling gun. So, in conclusion, these are extremely rare, very hard to find. Even advanced collectors that I've talked to have said that they've only seen, you know, one in the past 10 years. I was extremely lucky to get this one. Especially in this amazing condition. I wish the safety worked, and I'm not sure exactly what the problem is with it, and most of the time, the ones that I've only seen a few for sale ever, and they've always tended to be, you know, like 50%, something like that, maybe 60 at the most. So this thing has all of its original bluing. It's in great shape. It's just a shame it's not more fun to shoot. But it's always been a white whale for me. I love unique actions and unique mechanisms and things like that, and blow forward is extremely rare. Very unique indeed, and I'm proud to have it. Prices, couldn't even guess. You know, they're all over the place just because they're so rare. I think usually you're looking at about $500 anywhere to $1,500 for something in great shape. So thanks for watching. It's the Schwarzlose 1908, and pretty interesting. May not be the greatest gun ever, but it's interesting at the very least.